Welcome to the Human Conversation podcast with Jules White, the real dragon slayer, author and entrepreneur sales coach. Tune in weekly for human conversation about business and sales. Enjoy business expert interviews, educational episodes, and virtual cuppers with entrepreneur business owners. So grab yourself a cuppa and enjoy. Here is your host, Jules White.
Welcome everybody to the Human Conversation. I've got a fabulous lady with me today, and she runs a really wonderful company which is all about sustainability. It's called Profit Impact, and her name is Sarah Whale. Sarah, welcome to the Human Conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Jules. No, we tried to do it once before and the technology got in the way, but I'm really happy that we're here today.
Yeah, it's so nice to have you on because I think this is such a great subject. So I definitely want to dig into sustainability and what it means because I think that's so important. But I also want to find out a bit about Sarah because that wouldn't be right if I wasn't a bit nosy.
No.
So where did Sarah start then? When you left school, what did you want to be, Sarah?
Absolutely no idea.
Everybody answers like that.
Like most people. My dad said, "Oh, you're good at numbers," and so I went to work as an accounts assistant in a little practice in central London, and it literally just grew from there. So realised that actually I was quite good with numbers, and then just went through and did my qualifications and have had quite a long and meandering career is how I describe it, punctuated by children, and I've always had to wanted to work through bringing up my 3 children, so it's been quite challenging to make that happen. So I've tried lots of different things, but mainly within the finance arena.
So numbers, isn't it funny? I started out in a bank, obviously. I think you know that bit. So I was in NatWest Bank, and then one of the positions I went to sort of not long after leaving the bank was in an accounts department.
Right.
I went into the bigger world of business, and I worked for Recaro car seats, which were really popular in kind of sports, in the sports arena, but also many cars have them in, but they don't realise because they're not branded.
Right, okay.
And we had this first factory that had come to the UK, which was a German brand. So I was in the accounts department and I was paying all of the people working on the shop floor. So I was payroll and I was dealing with various other bits of accounting. My favourite bit was payroll, just because it was proper admin, easy, tick boxes, fill in spreadsheets and stuff. So I'm clearly a bit nerdy with spreadsheets.
Yeah, although payroll's quite, it's the one thing you cannot get wrong.
No.
So you have to be able to cope with the pressure of payroll, I think.
Well, or equally, I was also collecting cards because, clocking cards.
Right.
So it was a little bit manual stroke automated, because this was a long time ago. So yes, you're right. I suppose there's quite a lot of working out that I was doing. But I did reach the conclusion that I just wasn't an accounts person. It just wasn't my thing, and I ended up, I think the last thing I did was credit control. And that probably just put the ceiling on the end of it for me.
Not the end.
Chasing people for money. So you've worked in accounts and obviously with the numbers side of things. Are you a qualified accountant? Is that the route you went down?
So I didn't do a degree. I failed my A-levels quite spectacularly. I did a 1 A-level actually. But I went in as an accounts assistant, but then decided I was going to study. You could do something called AAT, which is the accounting technician. And then I went straight to do ACCA.
Brilliant.
So I've been qualified for 25 years now.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like whatever you do in life now, you've kind of got that, I hate to say as a string to your bow, but you've kind of always got that, haven't you? That's what I always think about these qualifications.
Yes, and I really don't think I appreciated that up until quite recently. So the ACCA, they've actually a transformed organisation. They do an amazing job, genuinely do an amazing job. And I actually feel that it's a great organisation to be affiliated to, and I can learn from and I contribute to. So it's been really good. I think the thing with accountancy, like most professions, it's just changing quite a lot, and it's transforming right now. So even though you're a qualified accountant, so you qualified, I don't know whether it was 10 years ago, 25 years ago, you have to keep up to date.
Yes.
Otherwise you can still call yourself an accountant, but can you really do you really know what's happening?
Yeah. Can they actually take away that qualification, or is it a case of the integrity of it is that you just stay up, stay in front, if you like?
Yeah, you have to do CPD. So you have to do, I think it's 21 units a year you've got to do, and you have to evidence that. And I think it's quite good. I mean, they do routine audits and check. So, the onus is on you to do it. I think what's interesting is, I think I'm right in saying this, and I'm 99% sure I'm right, they don't tell you what you have to do. So you could just stay within your little, if you're a tax person, you might just learn tax. Yeah. Now I'm actually, although I've said to you already numbers, I'm a numbers girl, I'm definitely more interested in strategy and leadership, sustainability. So I tend not to go down as much into the core accounting CPD. So I'm more, I like to say, more big picture.
Yeah, no, this is great, and it kind of brings us nicely on to talking about what you're doing now, really, after all of those years working, presumably for other companies.
Yes, I have had a couple of my own businesses, which were a bit of a variety. One was a football coaching company,
Wow.
a franchisee, which I loved that, and that was 6 or 7 years. And then I had a couple of other businesses, but it's primarily been finance roles.
Yeah, I love that. You see, we're finding all these little quirky things out about you, Sarah. It's great.
More to find.
Yeah, you're not going to just give them. I've got to find them away.
Keep digging.
I mean, the football coaching thing is interesting in terms of how did you ever get into something like that?
Well, actually, I used to play football when I was younger.
I knew I was going to find out more about you.
So I actually really believe that sport is a force for good, and I also, back in when I bought this franchise, sports moved on a lot in the past probably 15 years, but when I bought it, there was absolutely nothing for younger children, like the really young, and I mean like from age 2.
Yeah.
So I just heard about this franchise opportunity, and where I live in South Hertfordshire, I just thought, oh my goodness, this is going to fly. So it was a bit of a gamble because I had quite a good job at Bupa at the time, but I just wanted to do it. So I did it, and it was brilliant. I think we had like 600 or 700 children every week playing football that wouldn't have been playing football at that age group. So they were learning really good skills. Actually, it wasn't just a football. It was, the teamwork, the resilience. It was great. A really good opportunity for children.
What sort of age were the children?
Age 2 to 5 in the main.
Oh, so they were little toddlers, weren't they?
They were little, and that was quite challenging because you had to find football coaches to coach 2 to 4 year olds. So at the beginning that was quite hard, but I was very surprised. We did actually find some really good coaches, and a real mix of ages. It wasn't just dads or mums that were good. It was actually we got some really cool young football coaches coming in, coaching the kids. So
it's lovely.
it's a great opportunity. That I look back in fondness on that.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it, to have that experience, because it is a bit different to what you'd been doing, and also the fact you played football. So come on, was this at a club level, or how good were you?
Again, women's sports moved on so much from when I was young. So I did play a reasonable amount, but it just was not structured. It just was not structured. I mean, whether I would have played for England, I highly doubt it. But I was quite involved in it.
But you might have played for a club level, being that now there's quite a good position for women in the club scene, isn't there?
Yes, yeah. I think I probably would have, or at least have had the opportunity to go for a trial. That's probably where I would have got to. So.
Yeah. I love that about you. And I didn't know that either. So that's so cool that I found that out on my podcast.
There you go.
So did you give up the job at Bupa to do the football thing, or was it alongside?
I did it alongside for the first 6 months, just to make sure I could monetize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, that was a bit busy, because also Freddie's my eldest. He must have been, he was 2.5, and my daughter was 3 months. So it was quite a hectic. It was quite a hectic 6 months. So those two working and setting up Little Kickers, but it was good.
I seem to find more and more women who were mad like me and started running businesses when their children were 3 months old.
The thing is, back then, God, I keep saying back then, I'm sounding really old, but really back then, I'm not saying it's easy now, but it was a lot harder to get flexible working. And I actually do enjoy working most of the time. I do enjoy working, so I wanted to work, and I needed to bring the money in, but also I wanted everything. I wanted to be there for my kids and bring the money in. So I think you're right, and yeah, completely.
We're so like each other in that sense, I think. And I think the other thing about back then, if I'm honest, is that I didn't have social media. You know, people have probably heard me say this on my previous podcast, but the internet was only just starting to kick around. We had very basic websites that needed huge bandwidths to run before they crashed.
Yeah, completely.
You know, we had a very different world back then in order to get visible. And so I think today to get visible is so much easier. But then I guess the argument would be you then got a lot more people in that space, and it's quite a big noise out there, isn't it?
Well, I find that really interesting, because we are really monitoring our social media at the moment. Well, we have been since we started, and our digital interaction, and we're getting quite good engagement, but it's not really generating traffic to the website of any substance whatsoever. Yet with Little Kickers, we had one photo of this really, really cute looking footballer who was aged 3 in, I don't know whether it was the St Albans Review. It was one of the free weekend papers. That photo came out, and the landline phone went off the hook. I mean, I'm telling you, we just couldn't keep up with all the calls. And it's, so I think it's harder now to actually make an impact, because there's so much on social media. Yeah,
it's a busy place, isn't it?
It's a really
noisy.
busy place, yeah.
You've got to kind of like, this is when I talk about UHP, so this is like the uniqueness of you and how you stand out. And you know, we've talked about this before, you and I, and you've got these fabulous glasses, and I'm going to mention them because if anybody is watching on YouTube, so that means you all need to go and look at the YouTube. Sarah's got these amazing glasses, and they're just fabulous, and they're very much an ism. We talk about isms in the UHP, you know, what makes you unique. And your glasses are fabulous. You'd only just got them, I think, the last time we were talking.
Yes.
And they just look great. I just love them.
I've been lots of compliments, I have to say. I think everyone's just being polite, but yeah, no, I actually really like them as well.
Yeah, and they're memorable. So like, I remember that about you. Now that doesn't mean to say I remember, that's all I remember, because then it goes on that then we create a bigger relationship. Yeah. So let's talk about what you're doing now, because at what point did you then decide you needed to do something for yourself again?
Yeah, so I had a big job, as they call it, like a tough job in London, you know, managing a team of 60 or 70 across Asia and America and Europe. It was a really challenging role, and I did enjoy it, but I felt that there was something not quite right. and I just didn't know what that was. So I did take the very bold move of leaving, because at the time my husband wasn't working. So
Wow.
it was a bit of a step, maybe because I had my big birthday looming, and I felt like it was now or never. Possibly that's what I was thinking. So I went on a yoga retreat.
Always good to do that, Sarah.
A bit of a classic. Found myself an executive coach, and I'm very much I'm not very spiritual in that, you know, I tend not to listen to people when they say, you know, just stop, be still, it will all come to you. Well, I don't believe in any of that, but that's exactly what happened to me.
What you did, yeah.
That's exactly what happened. I did my yoga, had my coaching, and for about 4 months did lots of research and thinking, and what came out of it was I can wrap myself up in knots because I really like to do the right thing. I'm kind of the pragmatist, the voice of reason. You know, I don't want to make myself sound like an angel here, but that's just the way I operate. When I make decisions, I like to think of everybody who's affected. So that's one side of me, and then the other side of me is I'm really passionate about equality and women, and I did a lot of work in community sport to get young girls playing football where we live. So with this fairness, doing the right thing, equality, and I'd faced quite a few business ethics challenges within my finance roles, I kind of came to the conclusion that actually what I wanted to do was find something that used all those skills and finance. I think I did make my executive coach think, I don't know if I can help her with this. This sounds quite hard. But anyway, in the end, it is actually sustainability.
Yeah.
Now, that sustainability is a big part of it is actually when you make a decision, you think about everything that's impacted on that decision, whether that's people, your suppliers, your customers, your environment, and so that's how I got to, right, I'm going to set this up.
I just love this so much because, you know, I think for me, sustainability was always one of these words where I went, environment. Yes. And I think a lot of people do that. I think they think sustainability means environment, but actually let's think a bit bigger than that. As you've just said right there so beautifully, better than I could have put it really, that it's about how everything impacts everything else. Isn't that a wonderful description of it, you know?
Yes, it completely is. And I'm learning so much as I go through this. And it seems to be that every time in the calendar something happens. So on Friday we had Black Friday, and this year I sat there thinking, crikey, this really doesn't make sense. We're encouraging everybody to buy more and more stuff that they don't need, which is, you know, impacting on the environment. It's very, very interesting. I love it. I cannot go back.
And you're clearly passionate about it, and that's the other part of this, I think, which is what makes this so compelling. Is that it's not just a buzzword, let's just do that. It's a whole lot more than that, which you're actually very passionate about as an individual, which means that comes through your business and everything that you do, and every touch point of that business has your uniqueness to it because you're passionate about it.
I think it does, and you're right. And when I'm writing things, and I'm not a big writer, but when I write things, it feels more natural because I'm not having to make things up. It's just kind of coming from within.
Yes.
So you know you're in the right place.
Yes.
What is tricky is that what we are trying to do is to move businesses down, not me, but generally all these companies that are talking about sustainability, you're trying to move businesses to become sustainable. But part of that really is trying to look at how you run your business and how you approach your value and growth. because growth in terms of your bottom line or your top line is not necessarily the answer. And that's quite a hard thing to convince people, because that's a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
So I say that's the biggest challenge that we face, is that we need to become sustainable within the world, but we have this kind of financial system where people measure performance on the profit.
You're talking my language, because I'm coming from the sales side of that, and having been in sales for 30 years, and all I ever heard from my bosses were, here's your target, this is the revenue you need to achieve, end of.
Yeah.
And so the first focus was always revenue.
Yeah.
The second focus was, how should we do that then? And this is the way that it still works out there in sales, which ultimately is business, let's face it.
Yeah.
And I am in this place in sales where I'm trying to get people to think about people first.
Yeah.
People equals revenue.
Yeah.
You're in this place that then looks at the big picture of your business and all the elements that mean that actually you could have a profitable business, but that is not where you should be starting.
No. That's exactly it. The way I see this, and I'm not on my own, this is the general view, is that if you look at everything holistically, and I mean, clearly you've got to have commercial models that work, and you've got to have something that you're selling that somebody actually wants. If you have that, but you actually look after everything else, then the profit will come.
Yes.
But
exactly.
You've got to go in it in the long term.
You've got to trust as well, because the reason why I think revenue always leads typically as that core focus and the panic piece, I call it, because I feel like that's what happens in sales, especially now, is because people aren't thinking the right way round. They're not trusting that if they do the right things for the people, for the planet, with their products, everything. It's exciting. I can't get more excited about the opportunity of looking at a business in a different way,
Yeah, it's just brilliant. I mean, we've set our goals for this year, and we've got 6 or 7 goals across each of the pillars, so we call them the pillars.
Yes.
I think you persuaded me to call them pillars. It was your suggestion. It was very good. Thank you for that.
I think you probably came up with it yourself, Sarah, I was coaching you.
I think you remember you saying that. So we've got goals for all of these pillars, and it was so nice to have those goals and know we're working towards them. And actually, at the moment, we don't have a profit goal. Actually, we will next year. It's quite hard to have a profit goal when you're in the first year of startup in a pandemic. but we are setting our pillars in place, so we know how we want to run the business, and what are the goals we're going to be working towards. And it was such a lovely way of planning for the business.
I love it. And I want to know what the pillars are, because for my audience listening, they're all going to be there going, so what are the pillars? Come on, spill the beans.
The pillars people won't be surprised about, actually, because the pillars are what are looked at within business, but we're just referring to them and looking at them in a different way. So you've got 5 pillars, and the first is your customer base, or your I suppose your existing customers that have moved on, or your prospective customers, your environment, so your environmental impact, your people, your communities, so which I find a fascinating one, actually. Well, they're all interesting, but communities is fascinating. So communities is all the people aside from your employees. So effectively your suppliers or your local community. And then the 5th pillar, which I view underpins everything, is the finance and governance. So how you operate your business, within how you manage it and how you manage your finances. So they're the 5 pillars across the business.
That's great. And so I guess this forms the model of how you then work with the business yourself in your new business, your new pandemic business, Sarah.
Yes. Yes, it completely does. So we keep it simple and we help our businesses, first of all, understand how sustainable they are today. And then we work with them and we, we say, right, well, where do you want to get to? What are your goals? What do you want to do? And then we will help them come up with a plan. We're not environmental experts. We're not HR consultants. What we do is we give them the overall approach, and then we work with them and say, right, where do we think we need the expertise? Maybe they manufacture something, so they need an environmental specialist, and we help them find that. But what we help them do is understand the financial implications of sustainability. So that's effectively the start, and what the very much the plan is that these customers come on a journey with us, and we can support them ongoing. But because it's a long term proposition. Sustainability is not me going into a business, doing some numbers, having a few meetings, and then it's all kind of sorted.
It's all fixed.
Unfortunately, it's not that easy.
I think another thing, Sarah, is that I suppose sustainability is a moving thing.
Completely.
So you're never going to kind of have finished your work in essence, are you?
No, and that's completely right. I think that once you get into it, the vast majority of businesses that once they get into it, they will just want to grow their sustainability. It's quite infectious when you start to see the progress and you start to really believe that by doing it, you are strengthening your business. Once you can see that, then you want to do more and more. And then the other side of it is because there's a lot of regulation in motion at the moment, so it's not all bedded down. So you've got to really understand what's happening and keep in touch with the kind of the landscape, if you like. We're looking to help our customers do that, so that when the new things come in, we can say, oh, hang on, Jules, you need to be sure that you're looking at this, or
And are we referring potentially to things like Brexit changing the landscape of sustainability or not?
I don't think Brexit will. If Brexit's impacted on quite a lot, but not sustainability. I think what will happen with sustainability, there will be some quite significant changes to financial reporting and accounting standards. Although I don't think that's going to happen next year. But what is going to happen is you're going to have taxation. That's definitely coming down the line. That also you have measures that you have to report around the KPIs of your business. That's all the kind of, I suppose, what you would call the boring stuff. Unless you really like reporting and KPI measures, you might get excited by that. But that for most people is kind of the boring stuff. But I think the positive stuff that's coming is, and a lot of it is here, is the amount of kind of finance which is available for businesses that want to innovate in sustainability, or they want to transition their business. And that's it's a serious but important point, is that if you are a maybe 50 employees plus business, possibly even 20 employees plus business, and you know, depending on the sector you're in, it can be a bit overwhelming to think, how am I going to get from here to here, you know, to become sustainable? Because you might have long-term contracts in your business, and you know your employee base, you just might not have quite the right talent in your team to do some of the things you want to do. But there's funding, you know, there is funding that's available to support you, whether that's either loans or investment, or free government funding. So there's lots of good stuff.
Is that part of what you'd help with, things like identifying funding for businesses that you work with?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is. So I've just finished a program at Cambridge University on that point, actually, which was really good. I mean, it's such a big area. We're talking trillions of money. There's
Yeah.
trillions out there to go into sustainability.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's actually quite exciting. It's hard for SMEs at the moment. You know, it's hard. It's, you know, they've had the COVID, the furlough, the Brexit. I mean, it must be really overwhelming. But I really, in my heart, believe that sustainability is a positive thing. That if they can find the time to kind of talk to me and let me help them, I think I could really help them make it more positive.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the other thing is that with COVID, we've had this sort of year where many people are now saying, well, actually, I've reassessed stuff. Actually, it's made me stop and think, you know, and for me, that's one of the big positives is that we've actually stopped to say, were we really working smart or were we just running 100 miles an hour, hoping that everything was going to just hit?
Yeah.
And I think people have slowed down and started to think what's important to us. And if they're resetting, ready for 2021, which we will do, whether we like it or not, that's what we do in a new year. It's that little light, isn't it, at the end of the tunnel. Maybe now is the time to start saying, right, if we've never talked about sustainability, that's something to add to our agenda right now.
I mean, I really, really think so. I mean, I feel that, and I'm not just saying this because it's my business at all.
No.
I feel that financially is absolutely compelling to do this. But even more so, I think it's to not do it. To not do it is a bigger problem.
Yeah.
So I would encourage anyone actually that wants to kind of find out more, just start having a look round, you know, come and look on my website, you know, get in contact with me and we can talk. And I would definitely start to look. I would.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we're going to put all of your links in with this podcast so people can connect to you, Sarah.
Yes.
Listeners, you have to connect to Sarah, even if you're in a business that you're running on your own, one of your customers could absolutely benefit from working and looking at, you know, the sustainability part of what Sarah does. It might be she's a great collaboration for you. I'm just thinking out loud, Sarah, because you know what I'm like. But I think all of us have a footprint in this where we have a responsibility to sustainability, you know, and I've got no idea. I need to probably think about doing the, you know, practice what you preach, Jules, you know. But you're the lady to talk to, aren't you, Sarah, for just, is there some kind of audit you do from memory that kind of gives us this overview? What is it that you do?
The snapshot that we do, where we go in and well, basically I will have a conversation with you and then we'll go through and I'll pull together something which will give you a benchmarked assessment against a B Corp. The B Corporation, that's something for people to really have a look at. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that we've all got a part to play in this, and whether that's within our business or within our home life, or leisure. Maybe it's at our sports club. We're a member of the sports club. What can that sports club do? I think it's a very interesting space that we can all do something and get involved.
Yeah. Who's your ideal customer, Sarah? Who are the people that you would love to get introduced to?
I would like to get introduced to definitely people with an open mind to start with.
It's important.
It's really important that people at least are intrigued as to find out what this is all about. In terms of the kind of business, I mean, we are relatively sector agnostic, i.e. we believe we can help the vast majority of businesses. We're starting with the smaller, but between 20 and 100 employees is what that's probably will be our sweet spot, I think.
Yeah. Do they have to be in the UK, Sarah, or could you actually work with anybody in other parts of the world?
It's a good question. I think we could definitely work with people in the other side of the world. If it was a bigger company, I think it would depend on the sector and the size of the business and the country and their regulations. We do have some contacts now across. You speak to so many people in sustainability. I can't tell you what an open sector it is. Everybody, everyone's very open and sharing. So yes, the answer is yes. I'm sure we can help, or if we can't help, we can find someone who can.
Yeah, great stuff. Sarah, it's been really great to kind of talk about sustainability in a way that even I can understand. And I'm hoping that our listeners have certainly thought that it's very much food for thought, and that sustainability is not quite as complicated or as even just one rooted, if I could say that about it. It's not just about environment, it's about so many other things, as you said.
It really is. And one thing that somebody said to me about 6 months ago was, actually, he heads up the sustainability department in a company, and I said, oh, that sounds very good, really good job there. And he said to me, well, thank you, Sarah, but actually I only feel like I'm doing a good job when there is no sustainability department. So when it's embedded into the business. That's just the way we do things.
Amazing.
And I think that's right. But I think the beauty for SMEs is that actually is much easier to make happen. So in a large corporate business, I can completely see how you would have a sustainability team. Yeah. But within an SME, we can work together to really embed that. It's quite exciting, I think.
Yeah, and everybody plays their part in it, don't they? Which is awesome. So, parting thoughts, Sarah, if you could tell us one thing, the listeners, that's going to inspire us for the rest of the day after listening to this podcast, what would it be?
Well, I think for me, obviously it depends on the listener, but in terms of what inspires me the most, it's the future generations. Yeah, it's doing something for the future generations. It's really hard for the children of this current age. You look at what they're facing with property, the climate. I mean, they're so passionate about the climate crisis because they know it's going to impact them. Yeah. And so many people invest a lot of money in their children, whether it's private education or all the dance classes or whatever you want to invest in your children or your niece. Or, I think what we could do is stop all that investment and just put all our efforts into creating a better future. That's what I really think.
I love that. Sarah, thank you. Inspiring, darling.
Oh, good.
So nice to have you on my podcast at last and just talk about something that I think is such an important subject. So I hope the listeners enjoy. This has been a little bit different, really, talking about something like sustainability, and I'm delighted that we have. So thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh, thank you, Jules. It was really nice to talk to you.
And the listeners, what about all that then, eh? Sustainability. I know that when I was talking to Sarah many times, as we have, that sustainability started to mean a totally different thing to me. And I was very educated. And I hope you have been today with this podcast. Please do like and subscribe on the channel where you listen. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher and SoundCloud. And you can see this fabulous conversation on YouTube. So please do join us next time on The Human Conversation. Thanks for listening. Ta-ta for now.
You've just been listening to The Human Conversation podcast with Jules White. To find out more about the other work that Jules does, please visit her website, www.liveitloveitsellit.co.uk. And if you enjoyed the podcast, then please do leave a rating and review on the platform you use to enjoy her show. Thanks for listening and see you next time.